What's the biggest myth in B2B e-commerce right now?
B2B is easy.
Like, what's actually missing when a supplier has a good site, but it's not actually connected to how the actual buyers operate?
We believe that if the commerce platform is good and then is connected into that procurement experience, they're going to see automatic increases in adoption. And we've actually seen it over and over again.
Why are they using these e-procurement platforms? Beth mentioned Coupa and Jagger and others like that. Why on the buy side are even people using these sites?
They want those buyers to actually do their own job and not become mini purchasing agents. So they implement a purchasing tool or a spend management tool so that now it becomes easier to identify my suppliers of choice. I can place orders and beyond with my regular day.
The number one reason is their number one customer or one of their top 10 customers forced them to do it.
How do you move companies from thinking about something as checking the box to, wait, this is actually a strategic initiative, maybe a competitive advantage against my other competitors?
What is the problem you're trying to solve? We see the most value for our customers, the most ROI when they think bigger than that.
What kind of direction do you see AI taking within this whole e-procurement space?
I think we're not seeing a lot that's real yet, but there's a ton of potential.
There's a probabilistic side of AI, and there's a deterministic side, which we don't know fully exists yet.
I think there's a decent amount of people out there that are, bringing up some objections to this.
A customer of ours that is been the most successful in a short period of time. They actually implemented our platform in record timing. They came inbound to us and they said, I have a buyer that told me I need to integrate. And so they had everybody ready. We turned them around in probably about 2 weeks' time. They got to their first trading partner and they connected them within the next 30 days after that. Within the first month, they were coming back and saying, we are giving you the contract because the other two competitors that are in here, they can't do what you can do.
There's a version of the B2B e-commerce story that goes like this. You build a site, you pick the platform, you launch, and then revenue follows. That version is actually wrong. And today I have two people in the room who have spent their careers understanding exactly what it is wrong from all different angles. Beth Segovia came up through the manufacturing procurement and procure-to-pay process, spent years at IBM and Lenovo understanding how large enterprises actually buy, and then built operational rigor at Channel Advisor before joining TradeCentric as CEO in 2023. Her take, your buyer's not shopping, they're working. And if your commerce infrastructure does not reach them where they actually work, you are leaving adoption, revenue, and retention on the table. Kevin Kazenmayer has lived that reality from the other side. More than 20 years on the buy side at Grainger, Lowe's, Staples, before coming to TradeCentric to help suppliers understand what enterprise buyers actually need. He has sat in the procurement chair, he knows what happens to a supplier who does not connect, and he knows what preferred status looks like for the ones that do. Together they run strategy and enablement side of TradeCentric. Today, we are getting into connected commerce, what it means, what it costs to ignore it, and what it actually takes to build something that works. We're recording from our Greenville live studios, and I hope you enjoy it. So I've had a version of this conversation 100 times on the road with distributors and manufacturers, and it almost always goes the same way. Someone tells me their site is live, traffic's up, and they cannot figure out why revenue is not following. And my first question is always, have you talked to how your biggest customers are required to buy? Because 9 times out of 10, the answer actually reveals the whole problem. And that is what we are digging into today, with someone who has built the strategic case for fixing it and someone who has spent 20 years on the buying side watching suppliers get it wrong. Beth, you've said publicly that a commerce site alone is insufficient. I think that word choice is pretty intentional and pointed. Walk me through how you think about that. Like, what's actually missing when a supplier has a good site, but it's not actually connected to how the actual buyers operate?
Well, I think that's just it, right? Buyers who are procuring product for an organization are required to work in the system that procurement organization has invested in. So whether they're working in Coupa or Ariba or Jagger, they have a platform where spend is managed through. And so they're required to use that platform to make their purchasing choices. So if you have an e-commerce site that is not connected into that platform, you're immediately creating friction. So that supplier is immediately creating a barrier that the buyer has to jump in order to do business with them. So, we believe that if the commerce platform is good and then is connected into that procurement experience, they're going to see automatic increases in adoption. And we've actually seen it over and over again.
On the buy side, why are they using these e-procurement platforms? Beth mentioned Coupa and Jagger and others like that. Why are on the buy side or even people using these sites?
So for most of it, it's really to bring as much spend under management as possible, right? And get visibility into their supplier base. And what you end up seeing most of the time is that a buyer or an organization chooses a procurement system because they're trying to rein in their spend. They have locations across multiple regions, nationally, and basically everybody is their own purchasing agent. Well, to Beth's point, they want those buyers to actually do their own job and not become many purchasing agents. So they implement a purchasing tool or a spend management tool so that now it becomes easier to identify my suppliers of choice. I can place orders and be on with my regular day and not have to worry about, what a pen costs, what a blue widget costs, that I know my prices are already pre-negotiated, they're loaded up. And then again, as an organization, I can track all that and make sure that it runs all under all of my compliance rules.
I think in the e-commerce world, we kind of put e-commerce like in its own bubble, like that it's only e-commerce. But what we're talking about here is, so we have an e-commerce experience that many customers are going to use directly, right?
Yeah.
They're going to log onto that site. They're going to make their purchases, or they're at least going to do their discovery and research on that site. On the other side of it, we have buyers trying to control spend, trying to control suppliers that they work with. What happens when you have one side and not the other, and you don't have an understanding? Like, what does that affect when you don't realize that integration is necessary?
Well, I mean, I think a couple of things happen. One, the supplier that is integrated and is available in that procurement platform is going to naturally get traction, going to get the business. So you may have a better product. You may even have a better price, but if it's not visible and if it's not easy, right? I think you said it up front, right? We believe that buyers are working, not shopping. So they want to execute whatever it is they have to go, place an order for that day. They want it to be quick and easy. And the quicker and easier it is, the more they get done that day. And so, if you're not visible, you're not going to get your product selected. I think, there's other issues with not being integrated, right? I think Kevin pointed this out, right? Spend under management is an important tool for a procurement organization to control spend and visibility. They control catalogs, they control pricing, they've already pre-negotiated all of those things. So the buy side of that procurement experience can do their work and know they are within the rules or within the guidelines. If they have to go outside of those guidelines, they already know they're going to go through an additional approval process, that it's going to take more time, it's going to be slower, and there are going to be discrepancies, right? So if they place an order and they bought something off catalog, that order is going to get rejected, that invoice may not get paid. It creates all kinds of discrepancies, and again, that friction that comes up.
Have there been cases where you've actually seen suppliers that have been losing money because they don't use it?
Oh, 100%. I think what you find mostly is that the suppliers think that they're immune, right? And they say, it's not going to happen to me. It won't happen to me. My sales team is close to this customer. We work with them. We give them special pricing. And then when you start to unpack it and you ask them specific questions, you come to find out, oh, well, they go to your sales rep by exception. You're only getting the special requests. You're not getting the day-to-day requests. You're looking at your annual sales and you're wondering why it's shrinking. It's not shrinking because of the economy. It's shrinking because you're losing out to the supplier who's integrated.
We asked our customers, I meet with customers all the time and I ask, especially our more successful customers, so what got you started, right? Why did you start building your eProcurement integration program? And the number one reason is their number one customer or one of their top 10 customers forced them to do it. So the first step is usually a reactionary step. But what they realized once they complied with that request with their customer, that the customer spent more money with them, which seemed counterintuitive to them at first, right? So you're trying to control spend, you want to put me in your workflow, and then you're going to buy more from me. And once they realize that it's good for their business, that they're not going to, they're not going to lose business, they're actually going to see their existing business grow, then they start realizing this is a pattern I should repeat, and I should do that not only with my largest customers, but even with my smaller customers.
How do you move companies from thinking about something as checking the box? I would say like that the first implementation was checking the box, right? Providing it to, wait, this is actually a strategic initiative, maybe a competitive advantage against my other competitors. How do you get people to think through that?
We talk to our customers about what they want to achieve. Right. So when there is a prospect and they're talking to us about what the technology can help them accomplish, we're always exploring what is the problem you're trying to solve, right? So one, it might be I want to keep my largest customer. We try to make sure they understand that that's not the end of the road, right? If you come to us with a single customer to integrate, we're going to be hesitant because we see the most value for our customers, the most ROI when they think bigger than that, right? So we talk to them about, well, how many customers do you have? Where is 80% of your revenue concentrated? Is it with your top 25, 30% of your customers? Are they already integrated? So one of the biggest tools we have is we have a huge network of what we call trading partners. So our customers connect to all their customers using our platform. We'll bounce their customer list against our list of trading partners, and we'll tell them maybe 40% of their customers are already integrated buying from somebody else. And that's usually a pretty big mover in the right direction. So the customer has more awareness of how much active B2B buying is happening, how much their customers might be buying from a competitor or in another category, but from somebody else. So they're already purchasing in this way. So we try to coach them on how to, think about the business in a bigger way. But once they get started, we have invested heavily in our platform to create an analytics capability so that once they can see their business flowing through our platform, they can pretty quickly see the ROI. So they will see not only business growing, which is number one, but they'll start to see the number of things that fail go down dramatically, right? So if it's going through the platform, if the transactions are automated, they're starting to see that efficiency gain. And so we try to help them from the beginning build this ROI thought process. So we talk to them a lot about what's meaningful to you, right? It's not always the same metrics for every customer, but how would you measure success, right? You'll talk to a customer of ours shortly, and they have their own set of success metrics, and then we help them sort of realize that success during that first 1 to 2 years, and then it kind of builds on itself. Once we get a customer that's integrated 5, 10, 15, 20 of their customers, they'll, through those success metrics, start to experience that ROI, and it feeds on itself. I mean, we've had customers say, we had no idea how much money we were leaving on the table from a revenue perspective or efficiency we would gain by building an eProcurement integration program. And so we just try to help them realize that.
There's a camp that treats eProcurement as an IT project. I think it's very, very ties into checking the box. So you're checking the box. Who does, if we talk about the word integration, right? It gets put into the IT camp. Beth, you came up in procurement. You came from the buyer side. What does that framing miss when you frame it into just the IT world?
So the way I like to do it, and the way I've had success in the past, is to ask them, would you like to open up a new sales channel? right? Because when you start to use the words, even eProcurement, right? eProcurement integration, everybody goes down the technical side. But once you start to talk about, would you like to open up a new sales channel? You get more people on the business side really involved. And that's really where you got to start your play. Because if you don't have the business side involvement and they don't understand the opportunity that's there, you're not going to get buy-in from the sales teams involved, by any of the support teams. It may be easy for an IT team to go and say, I just integrated punchout. I integrated purchase orders and invoices. They check their box. They hit their goals. But there may be nothing that runs through it because the rest of the organization didn't buy into it, right? So you really have to start from the top, and you have to get that buy-in on, the sales organization, the sales leadership side, even all the way up into the CFO and the CEO, so that they know that there's a new channel that can drive them growth, not only within their existing customers, but potentially expose them to new customers that they may not even have targeted in the past.
Well, and I think there's a real opportunity from the IT side as well. So the IT team's always got to be brought to the table, right? There's always some work to do. So they're an important part of the program. But we want those IT teams working on problems that they can't find somebody to help them solve, right? Not a problem that's been solved already. And building your own integration program can be a bit of a gnarly task, right? A supplier is going to have many customers. Those customers are going to use a whole bunch of different systems. And when you start integrating multiple types of documents, it gets pretty complex pretty quickly. And so the IT team that's going to take that on as a project, it's not one and done. It's one and forever, right? So once you get it set up, it has to be maintained. It's going to grow over time. The business is going to want information out of those integrations if they're going to grow it successfully. So, we kind of want to help those IT teams realize we need you to be engaged. We want you to make the right decision, but we want you to be solving problems for the business that you can't find solutions for elsewhere.
Help everybody get a little bit concrete here. When you look at order to cash, and this is for either of you, order to cash process, what are the things that are quietly kind of bleeding the company? And maybe an addendum to that, you mentioned analytics. What are the things that people are not, or teams are not measuring that they should be measuring in this whole process?
Number of bodies.
Number of bodies. Well, no, just to
explain more.
So a great example. So customer that's going to join us in this discussion a little bit later had invoices that were failing at a pretty low rate, 3%. But that drove a whole team of people that had to do, I think the quote was 11 touches per invoice back and forth with the customer to compare it to the purchase order, reconcile the discrepancies, get the invoice accurate, and then get it paid. So from a super concrete one, those are people that are doing something that doesn't have to be done if it had just been automated in the first place. Two, we're delaying collections. Right. So, monies are owed, monies need to be collected. And those 11 touches are going to take, 1, 2, 3 weeks to get resolved before that invoice can progress to payment. And so cash flow is a consideration. Bodies on invoice reconciliation, POs that are failing, or just taking orders manually, or processing an e-commerce order that didn't match the approved purchasing or didn't have the right whatever. Any of those manual processes, even if the failure rate is 3%, 6%, 7%, can drive an enormous number of just people in the process that don't need to be in the process. If you can deterministically automate it, then we think you should.
I don't know if you heard of this term, but we used to refer to it back in the day as sneaker net. And basically,
this is new to me.
If you were a distributor and the distributor that I worked at, we went to market saying, you want to integrate with us because you want everything seamless. You want to move as many people out of the process as possible to make it easier. And when we made it easier, we knew that we were going to get more of your business. And we knew which suppliers were running sneaker net, which basically it was, they gave the vision that, I'm all integrated, but behind the scenes, there was a bunch of people running around, getting it off the fax machine, the email, downloading it, entering it, handing it off to, accounts payable. And there were so many bodies involved that everybody was just happy because I was doing my job. And nobody like took a step back and said, what could we be doing that's more valuable to this business than chasing after paper, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, the next blog, the blog title of
It's
this
gonna be
will definitely
Sneakernet.
include sneakernet in some way. And I'm
As
gonna act
long
like
as you
I'm
give
gonna act like I
kudos.
came up with it too, by the way.
See, and I thought like everybody used that term all the
No,
time.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, the number of bodies. From the buy side, Kevin, you've watched what happens when POs and invoices don't match. I think it's important actually to explain to people that a lot of people don't actually understand that there are a number of documents that have to get matched up in the process before someone gets paid, accepts the shipment, all of that. Will you talk about those documents? Because even from the e-commerce side, we kind of think of it like an order when often the buyers need to have a number of documents match up before payment can ever be made. Can you walk through that?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a great point, right? So when you're on a commerce platform, when you check out, the order number that's given to you is typically, hey, that's the order number. But when you're using procurement and when you're a buyer, you need a purchase order number because everything is predicated on that purchase order number. And you'd be surprised at how many suppliers don't understand what a purchase order number is, or don't have even a place to capture that detail. And basically what you need to be able to do in most instances, when you have a purchase order and someone sends you a purchase order, well, now you have to return an invoice. And the invoice needs to contain a purchase order number because that invoice is going to be matched line by line, that whatever they ordered is what you're invoicing them. Some companies will even utilize a three-way match where they'll take it down to a receiving document and they'll make sure that someone in their company actually received every line item on that purchase order with the right quantity. And then they'll match your quantities, the pricing, to the extended lines to the final PO price. So there's so many more documents that you can include into this, even advanced ship notices where that may be even aiding in the receiving process. But the ability to automate that as much as possible is you're eliminating all of that manual back and forth or misreading or misinterpretation. And if you don't have something in the middle that can validate, so I now have an invoice and I'm going to send it back to you. If there's nothing there that's looking at that invoice and checking to make sure the original PO had 10 lines, am I sending back 10 lines? Are these 10 lines in the order that they were received in? Is there anything else that seems an anomaly here? Or am I just going to take my garbage and throw it onto Justin and say, you figure it out? Because that's what people are doing, right? When they're not automating, they're just basically taking whatever comes out of their system and I'll send you an email, I'll send you a PDF, and I'm crossing my fingers that it's all right and that you're going to pay me.
Well, and it, I think you said there's many documents in that conversation. So if you start with the integration between the procurement and the commerce platform and you initiate a punch out and return that cart for a purchase order approval process, and then what gets sent is the actual purchase order that can be linked to the invoice, that can be linked to the ASN, right? The more steps you have that are automated through the same process, the higher degree of match you're going to get. And that means faster shipments, faster invoices, faster payments. So the supplier is happy, the buyer is happy, they got their product as quickly as possible, and the errors are just reduced significantly.
Beth, you've mentioned, or at least TradeCentric's mentioned it quite a few times, that integration doesn't have to be a science project. And I love that. I love that phrase. Again, I love words that put together.
Sneakernet is our new favorite.
Doesn't have to be a science project, but it's actually a pushback also against how IT projects are typically done. Can you talk about that a strategic approach of it being not being a science project?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've invested a lot in the technology to make this not such a difficult process, right? So when we have a supplier work with us, we will integrate with that supplier one time. So we will do all the connection creation with that. And that's going to take a number of hours, but it's not going to take months and it's not going to take an IT team of 25. So we know how to do it. We've done it hundreds of, lots of times now. And so we have a process that's pretty easy. And then when we go connect each of their customers, right, again, it's a configuration step. So it's very likely we've already connected to that procurement system before. That buyer may have some level of uniqueness to their software version. And so we'll understand that, we'll ingest it, and we'll go take care of those complexities. So the amount of hours that have to go into the customer's end or their customer's end has really been minimized. So the complexity is in the translation, which is the work that TradeCentric does, so that the customer and their customer don't have to do that work. So if you're already going to be investing in e-commerce, or if you already have, you've done 90% of the hard part, I think, right? And then once you extend the technology to include integration, we've just tried to make that as easy as possible. So there's going to be some customers that don't have a capability that's required to get this done. So there's going to be a little bit of build, but we're pretty quick about identifying, are you ready? If you're not, what's missing? And give our customers a roadmap of what needs to be done. But we've just rarely seen it turn into a science project.
Where does most of the complexity live, and how does TradeCentric absorb that complexity for the suppliers?
So most of the complexity lives on the buyer side, right? So that one-time connection to a supplier's commerce platform, understanding their formats is very simple, right? Once we get it to that point. The more challenging piece, and this is why when Beth refers to it not being a science project, is you'll look at a connection and you and Beth could be on the same platform. You're both utilizing Coupa, but your back end is a little bit different and your business operates differently. So you require different information when you submit a purchase order, when you receive an invoice, than with Beth. Maybe Beth's doing more research work, so she needs grant numbers and contract numbers stored and captured, right? A typical IT team would have to build multiple maps on how your organization versus how Beth's organization would transact, where what we do in the middle is we have that one general connection to the platform, but the flexibility lies in, okay, I'm going to plug A to B this time instead of A to C. And that allows us to react a lot faster than you would do in a typical IT organization of scoping, going through new mapping, a build, and next thing you know, 6 months later, you're finally promoting something that we could probably promote in 2 weeks.
We were talking back in the green room, we'll call it, before this, kind of the direction AI is going, and the difference between talking about the capabilities of AI like they're real, and then talking to actual customers, manufacturers, distributors, doesn't matter who it is, and what are you actually doing here? And the answer often is, not a whole lot, at least on the, there's companies doing a lot in things like chat bots and chat and search and kind of data enrichment, but not in kind of the big use cases. What kind of direction do you see AI taking within this whole eProcurement space?
So I think a couple of things. I think we're not seeing a lot that's real yet, but there's a ton of potential, right? So we're certainly seeing the procurement platforms creating agents, right, that can, an experience where you can shop, with verbal or a natural language, right? Instead of I'm trying to remember that SKU I need and I'm searching for a supplier and then searching their site and, right, having a very different experience that leads you to discovery, I think is the first step. And then creating an agent that can interact with a commerce agent on the other side. The commerce tools are doing the same thing, right? So each commerce platform is thinking about, how do I present this set of product data that previously would have been presented through a UI into something that an agent can read, right? So we think it's heading in that direction, but we think it's going to create maybe even a more complex challenge in the future, because we're going to have agents on both sides that need to read each other's data, understand each other's language, pardon the pun, to be able to share those documents and or create those transactions. And securely, correct every single time, not sometimes hallucinating or sometimes inaccurately. So we think there could be value in a transaction layer that is helping these agents interact to make sure that we know the protocols on both sides, making sure all the information is included, that nothing's missing, that data is being enriched from information and sources that we have. So we think that there's going to be agentic discovery first, and then eventually agentic shopping. I don't think anyone is sure what that's going to look like yet, but we think for integrated purchasing, it could be not that different from today, but just with a different set of technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I think the way I like to ask suppliers, distributors, wholesalers, is there's a probabilistic side of AI, and there's a deterministic side, which we don't know fully exists yet. Do you want to probably accept an order and hopefully you're getting the right details to submit it and fulfill it? Or do you want something that is deterministic, which is going to get you the right information that you need to receive, fulfill, and then invoice that order? And right now, the deterministic side is where we're focused on, right? That's what our platform can do today. And that's what we believe suppliers of all likes and sizes want, right? They don't want to take a chance and hope that Justin, I think this is what he wants. I'm going to ship it to him. And then you come back and say, that's not really what I was looking for, right? Because there's too much out there, right? It's too probabilistic.
I have an agent I wrote for, like, I'll write a LinkedIn post, and then once the post is done, it'll scan that, look for people, and if it's people, it'll go out to Gemini and create a image to use. Pretty simple, but it's an agent. It was written in plain text as an agent, as most are, inside of an MD file. And what was interesting about that, though, inside of it executes a Python script with an API out to Gemini, and it broke this morning. And I was looking at why it broke, and I was asking the AI, like, why did it break, right? I couldn't figure it out. And basically the parameters for the API had changed, and the text I was providing didn't provide all the information it needed for the new API. But really what that meant was, like, we have a very structured API, what it needs to get from you and what it returns.
Right.
And this text thing, because it kind of changes every time, like, I don't know if I want to do it that way this time. I'm going to do it a little bit different this time. It doesn't do it the same way every time. Doesn't read the text the same way every time. It's more probabilistic, as you said, Kevin. And so it actually broke. And, easy to fix, but I feel like we've got to move. And I'm really curious as you guys kind of think of that transaction layer that I would imagine is more of like a translation. Do you think that middle layer is more of a translation from the protocols on both sides? Is that how you guys see it?
Yeah. And I think, it's an interesting point that you all are discussing. If we've gotten the errors out of the process through deterministic, automation, why would we introduce new errors into that process?
That's true.
Right? So as the agent, we have new technology coming at us, right? And so as, again, buyers are working, they're not shopping, right? So as the way they work changes, we have to evolve along with it. But we don't want to lose the good bits, right? So we don't want to lose the fact that we can automate transactions and we can get it to be error-free. We can achieve three-way matching, we can achieve speed. So we want to use the good bits of what's coming from this new automation. We want to make it easier to discover. We want to make it easier to place orders. We want to make it easier to interact. But we don't want to lose the accuracy that we've already created. And I mean, you raised it earlier. Think about security, enterprise grade, all the things that very large enterprises are looking for. They're not going to want tools and systems that are guessing whether or not they're sending the right purchase order, because there's obligations involved, right? If you place that order, I don't really want to hear that your agent made a mistake. Right?
That's right.
I'm sending you $1 million of servers anyway.
I mean, that's why.
And I expect payment in 30 days.
You just talked about the 3% error rate in invoices and eliminating that.
Well, and I don't want to open up my doors just to everybody and say, hey, here's all my product and my pricing and my availability, especially if I have guarantees to certain customers. I think what we're looking at is that this whole deterministic approach is what's happening in a procurement system today. Now with agents, does that change and move to a chatbot? Does that move to my Slack? And my Slack internally, I still have to check and make sure that I'm following all my proper protocol. But when Slack goes to send a message out, well, now it may not go to a commerce experience. It may go to something else that's like a data store, right? So who's that middle person that's going to sit there and say, I know this is coming from a Slack agent. I understand what supplier they're trying to get to. Here's all the security protocol in place. I'm going to be able to now log you in, right? Provide back that experience so that you can continue your ordering in your Slack.
So if I'm listening to this and we're talking about e-procurement and integration, I think there's a decent amount of people out there that are bringing up some objections to this, objections that their executive team might bring up to them, for example. One of them I can imagine is and I think you mentioned it earlier, this won't help me, or this can't happen to me. I won't have any suppliers or buyers that will need this type of technology. Like, how do you respond to that?
I love to respond to this with like my favorite story of a customer of ours that is been the most successful in a short period of time. They actually implemented our platform in record timing. And basically what they do is they sell car wash supplies.
Oh, wow.
So first thing I say is, well, do you think a car wash distributor would have somebody that would be buying on a platform? Most of the answers are, no, I don't, probably not. I said, okay. Well, they came inbound to us and they said, I have a buyer that told me I need to integrate. And so they had everybody ready. We turned them around in probably about 2 weeks' time.
Wow.
They got to their first trading partner and they connected them within the next 30 days after that. They started buying from them. Within the first month, they were coming back and saying, we are giving you the contract because the other two competitors that are in here, they can't do what you can do. So they ended up winning, becoming the sole source provider for this one, set of car washes.
Just because the buying experience was easy.
Just because the buying experience was easy, yeah. And then within 3 months, they had added 6 more buyers. So they were already now realizing this is a big sales opportunity for us. This is a play.
That is the sales channel that you were mentioning earlier.
And do you know what ended up happening like 6 months later?
What's that?
One of their competitors was knocking on our door saying, I need these capabilities. Please help me.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, because now they're realizing they're a laggard and they've lost out on market share.
How much do you see this in contracts being written today? Is that something that's pretty prevalent?
So in the larger contracts, yes. In fact, so talk about here in the States, we just ran into one with the state of North Carolina eProcurement. If you want to do business now with the state of North Carolina and you are an approved contract supplier, you must be able to integrate with their eProcurement platform. And now just in the last week, we're finding that there's this new UK act that started in 2023, a procurement act that now in 26, they're basically saying, everybody has to have a digital or integrated solution in order to compete for state and government contracts.
So the argument is, even a car wash distributor, it's relevant.
Well, it's a great example, right? It's great. Because you wouldn't think that would be the most automated of industries. I think the other great example is, professional contractors that are implementing, home building, home repair, renovation. That is a huge sector that has automated purchasing through eProcurement platforms. And so, if the guy that's remodeling your bathroom is using an eProcurement platform to buy, I think that's a pretty cool example.
Well, it's one thing to connect to that one customer in a timely fashion. It's another to acquire 6 new customers.
That's right.
In that segment.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that's the piece that always is overlooked. It's, well, I don't know how to go after them. And that's quite frankly what my team tries to help our customers with is we'll sit down with them and walk them through a strategy and try to give them that vision. And as Beth mentioned earlier, we look at our network and we say, well, if you're looking at this industry or you're starting to expand or you're putting a focus around a specific industry, let us tell you if that industry is even buying this way. And that gives them an opportunity to say, okay, I now can go in there with a leg up.
So the other objection I can imagine people having is that hey, I've got a big IT team. We custom build everything, as many companies. I think a few of the companies you came from, Kevin, had that mentality. Why can't I just build this myself?
Well, I think, some customers, well, maybe many customers start there, right? I had one customer demand it. I'm going to stand up an integration, connect 2 points. I'm going to figure out how to translate the one document type they want me to translate. I'm going to satisfy their request and move on. So certainly that can be done. But, as you add multiple buyers, multiple procurement systems, the complexity gets much, much more significant. But you could say still, I could do that, right? I have a large IT team, you said, very talented. They can build a lot of it. I got plenty of money, so I have plenty of people I can put on this to go maintain those connections. You can do that. We think that misses out on an opportunity, one, to be utilizing those resources in a different way, right? It's going to be far more economical, I think, to use a purpose-built solution that was designed to do this. But there's also what's often overlooked is the IT teams generally don't have time to prioritize building some kind of business analytics on top of the integration tool set. And that's the most valuable part of the platform. So yes, it's valuable to process transactions, but to see the business, to see where things are failing so you could resolve them quickly, to find out why a customer used to buy and has suddenly dropped off from buying, to see peaks, right? Oh, somebody's really buying, something's taken off in the last 2 weeks. I wonder what's happening with this customer. Let me go talk to them. So the opportunity to optimize the business, to see growth patterns, to actually measure and see the ROI, and to understand how much return you get. We had a customer that we were working with who had graciously agreed to do a case study, and we used the analytics portion of our platform to go do the ROI. So we said, look, here's what it's looked like over the last 2 years, and here's the return. And the customer said, I don't think anybody is going to believe those numbers. We should probably tone it down. And we thought, well, the toned down version is still good. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and do that. But that I think is a powerful piece of it. So I think a DIY decision is taking on a pretty big burden, investing in people and the maintenance and ongoing. And you mentioned it, right? The API suddenly required something different today. You don't always get advised that when that is happening, and then the ability to put analytics on top of it. But you might talk about, from your history, why the choice was made to go DIY and whether or not we've seen some customers who've moved away from it.
So it's a great point, right? And you had brought up about like, hey, you have a big IT department. Well, 25 years ago when all this technology was new, there were a certain group of suppliers that came out of the gate and said, okay, I see this as an opportunity. I'm going to invest in it, right? And they became the cornerstone in all different industries, right? Office supplies, MRO industrial supplies, computer peripheral supplies. Those are pretty much the dominant suppliers that have built it on their own. But even working at a couple of those suppliers in those industries, you come to see that you still run into time constraints. You still run into, I need to build a piece of custom code to allow this customer to be successful. And it's got to be prioritized amongst everything else. So now you're battling. And, Beth brought up a great point about analytics. So we had built analytics at my one company, and it took over 2.5 years to match the commerce experience, the punch-out experience to the back end order. So we finally were able to see conversion rates. And that was big because then you could see who's spending time on the site, who's having trouble. And our platform actually does that out of the box. And when you start to talk to a DIY about that and saying, do you offer that today? How hard was that to build in your commerce experience? Well, you get it automatically with our platform. That's to me, that's worth it in and of itself. But then if you peel back a little bit, you think about some of the big suppliers that are done it themselves back, in the early 2000s. And if you talk to them today and you ask them what are they struggling with the most, they will tell you that they struggle with the same things for the last 20 years, staying up to date on versions and being able to do customized requirements. And one of the biggest bad suppliers out there that everybody's always fearful of runs into those same challenges too,
Yeah.
right? So nobody's really perfected it from a DIY perspective. They've kind of made it work within their organizations, but they built big teams, right? So do you want to build an organization of 25, 30 people, 50 people to run an eProcurement integration shop? Or do you want to scale that down to a smaller subset and work with someone that can do it for you?
I think you guys also have large R&D teams and investment that you're making into the platform that everybody gets to take advantage of when you do one of those releases that someone would have to go out and custom build. That's good. I'm gonna do a bunch of kind of quick fire questions.
Okay.
Beth, what's the biggest myth in B2B e-commerce right now?
The biggest myth.
I like
You
that
want
one.
you take
You
that
can
one.
answer it too.
I can answer that one.
You
The biggest
take
myth, B2B is easy.
True.
I wanted to get a shirt from a long time ago. B2B is not easy.
Not easy. That is absolutely true. All right, do another one, Kevin. From the buy side, which supplier behavior drove you the most crazy when you were at Grainger or Lowe's or any of the others?
Having to wait to build something for your best customer.
What were you waiting on often?
A custom cart return or customized invoice.
IT.
Yeah, IT.
Beth, what's one number every B2B supplier should know about their business but probably doesn't?
The number of headcount they have invested in managing discrepancies in purchase orders and invoices.
Love it. Beth and Kevin, TradeCentric in 3 years, one sentence.
The strategic partner that helped me sort out AI as it transformed B2B commerce.
Love it.
I love it.
You're adopting that one
Yes,
too.
I'm adopting that one.
Can we come up with something around sneaker?
Sneakernet?
Sneaker line.
The
Or we can just,
anti-TradeCentric, the anti-sneakernet.
we can just use Beth's favorite 3-letter phrase.
Oh, no.
LFG.
LFG.
LFG, I like that too. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time here in the Greenville studios. It was so amazing.
Yep.
I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
Justin.
Manufacturers, distributors, leaders in the zone. If you're building B2B, this the podcast throne. The industry's heartbeat, we're setting the tone. Turn insights to actions, it's how empires are grown.